In section 1.3, we will solve multi-step linear equations. Here are the steps. Step 1, clear any fractions by multiplying each side by the lowest common denominator, which we will do in later examples. Remove any parentheses using the distributive property. Combine like terms on each side of the equation. So the equal sign separates the left side and the right side. And on each of the two sides, we will be combining like terms. Then we need to move all the variables to one side and all the constants to the other. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples. Let's start off with an easier example. We have to solve the equation 6x minus 2 equals to 4x plus 11. So in this equation, we have no parentheses. We have no like terms. So if you look at the left side and the right side, no terms are similar. So we skip that step. We just now have to move all the variables to one side and all the numbers to the other side. So you can have a choice. You can move the x's to the left or to the right. I'm just going to move them to the left. So if I subtract 4x from each side, this gives me 2x minus 2 equals to 11. Now I need to move the negative 2 to the right. So I am going to add 2 to each side. And this gives me 2x equals to 13. Now just remember that when you move from one side of the equation to the other, we take the opposite. So opposite of a positive 4x is a negative 4x. Opposite of a negative 2 is positive 2. And this leaves us with 2x equals to 13. Now since the x is being multiplied by 2, we do the inverse of multiplication, which is division. And this will give us x by itself because 2 divided by 2 is 1. And our answer is going to be x equals to 13 over 2. Let's take a look at the next example. So we have no parentheses, we have no fractions. However, on the left side and the right side, we do have some like terms. Now, when you have like terms, you just add or subtract them. So for example, if I have a negative 4x and a 14x, this is a negative and the 14 is a positive. So when you have different signs, we subtract the terms. 14 minus 4 is 10x. And we take the sign of the bigger number. So that'll be positive 10x plus 19. On the other side, we have a 20x. Then we have a negative 49 and a positive 19, which is a negative 30. So that takes care of combining like terms. Now, we need to move all the variables onto one side. And you can pick. You can move the 20x to the left or the 10x to the right. It doesn't matter. I'm going to move the 10x to the right. But again, if you didn't do it this way, it's all good. So we get 19 equals to 10x minus 30. Then we add 30 to each side. And this gives us 49 equals to 10x. We divide both sides by 10. And our final answer is going to be x equals to 49 over 10. Next example, let's do this one in class. Next example, we want to solve this equation. Now we have added one more step. There is a parentheses with the number on the outside. Whenever that happens, we have to distribute. In other words, we have to multiply the 7 to the x and multiply the 7 to the 4. Same thing with the negative 2. And if you think about the order of operations, we always multiply before we can add or subtract. So the distribution has to take place before we can add or subtract. And it even says here, step 2 is distribution. Combining like terms is adding and subtracting, so we have to do the distribution before we can add or subtract. All right, so what do we have here? This gives us 7x. 7 times 4 is 28 plus 2. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Remember that a negative times a negative is a positive, so it's a positive 14 minus 1. If I combine my like terms, I get 7x plus 30. I got 28 plus 2. And on the right side, I have negative 2x plus 13, 14 minus 1. Those are my like terms. Now I have to move all the variables to one side. So you can choose. I'm going to choose to add 2x and move the variables to the left. So this will give me 9x plus 30 equals to 13. Next step is to move the constants to the right. So then this will give me 9x equals to negative 17. And then if you just divide both sides by 9, because the x is being multiplied by 9, so we divide both sides by 9. And then this gives us x equals to negative 17 over 9. So now we get to the case where we have fractions in our equations. The easiest way to solve equations using fractions is to clear the fraction. Okay, what does it mean? It means we have to multiply the fraction by something that's going to eliminate the denominator. So how do we do that? We're going to multiply each term, and specifically we're going to multiply each numerator, not just randomly, but we're going to multiply each numerator of each term of the equation by the least common denominator, by the LCD. So then the first question we're going to ask is, how do you find the least common denominator? So the least common denominator, also called the least common multiple, is a number that 6 and 9 can both go into. So our denominators here are 6 and 9. Our least common denominator is going to be the lowest number that 6 and 9 can both go into. For example, if I take the times table, the multiplication table for 6, I have 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, etc. These are all multiples of 6. Okay, with 9, we have 9, 18, 27, 36, 45. These are all multiples of 9. We want to find the lowest multiple that's common to both of these numbers, which is going to be 18, because 6 can go into 18 and 9 can go into 18. So our least common denominator in this case is going to be 18. Okay, what about the least common denominator of 4, 10, and 8? So I have a quick little tip for you guys. You can write down the multiplication table for 4 and then also for 8. But what I recommend is only writing down the multiplication table for the highest number, highest denominator, in this case 10. So that's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, etc. Now go through and find the first number that 4 and 8 can both divide. For example, with 20, 4 can divide it, but 8 can't. With 30, neither of them can. But 40, 4 can divide 40, and 8 can divide 40. So 40 is going to be the least common denominator. It has to be a number that 4, 8, and 10 can all go into. So in this case, our least common denominator is going to be 18. Now, once we find that, we're going to multiply the numerator of each term of the equation with whatever that LCD is. So here's an example of that. We have x plus 3 over 8 equals to negative 1 over 12, and we want to clear the denominator. So our denominators are 8 and 12. Now remember, the easiest way of doing this is take the biggest number and write down the multiplication table for 12. So we got 12, 24, 36, etc., etc. And find the lowest number that 8 can also go into, and that's 24, because now 8 goes into 24, and we know that 12 goes into 24. So our LCD will be 24. Okay, what do we do with that? We're going to multiply each of the numerators of these terms by 24. If there is a denominator, we can just put a 1 underneath. So if I rewrite this equation, it's x over 1 plus 3 over 8 equals to negative 1 over 12. And what I'm going to do is, I am going to multiply every single numerator of every single term by 24. So the x gets multiplied by 24, the 3 over 8 gets multiplied by 24, and the negative 1 over 12 gets multiplied by 24. Okay, so what does that leave us with? We got 24 times x, that is 24x, Now over here, look at what happens. The 8 and 24, they cross cancel, and that was our whole objective. Our whole objective was to get rid of that 8. So 8 goes into itself once, and it goes into 24 3 times. So now what I have here, the 8 is gone, and I just have a 3 times 3. So what I just did was I cleared the fraction. This is why we have to have a number that 8 and 20 and 12 can both go into. Okay, same thing on the other side. 12 goes into 24 2 times. We made sure that happened. So the 12 goes away, we cleared the fraction, and we have negative 1 times 2. So now I have 24x plus 9 equals to negative 12, or sorry, negative 2. To solve this, I would move all the variables to one side, which we already have, 24x, and move all the numbers to the other side. This is going to give us (24x) equals to negative 11, which means x is equal to negative 11 over 24, because we divide both sides by 24. Okay, let's take a look at the next example. Our denominators are 3, 6, and 10, but I'm only going to write them with times table for 10. Now I'm going to go through each number. Can 20 be divided by 3, or can 3 go into 20? Nope. Can 3 go into 30? Yes. Can 6 go into 30? Yes. So there we go. That's our least common denominator, 30. All right, so what do I do with this? So what I'm going to do is I am going to rewrite this equation. I have 2 over 3x minus 6 over 1 equals to 7 over 10x plus 5 over 6. Now for each of these fractions, I'm going to multiply all the numerators, so all 4 of them, by 30. Multiply by 30, multiply by 30, multiply by 30, and multiply by 30. So now let's start canceling things out. 3 goes into 30 10 times. The 1 and 30 can't do anything with that. 10 goes into 30 3 times. 6 goes into 30 5 times. So what we just did was we cleared all the fractions. Now we have 10 times 2x, which is 20x. Then we have negative 6 times 30. Then you have 7 times 3. And you know what? I'm actually going to leave this as 10 times 2x. Plus 5 times 5. If I multiply this, I get 20x minus 180 equals to 21x plus 25. All right, so let's move all the variables to one side. Doesn't matter which side we go to, but I'm going to go to the right. So I'm going to subtract 20x from each side. So this gives us negative 180 equals to x plus 25. Then I'm going to move the 25 to the other side by subtracting it. So minus 25. So then we get the x by itself. Negative 80, 180, and negative 25 is going to be negative 205. And that is the value of x. So the basic principle, once again, find the least common denominator, multiply each fraction by that least common denominator, and then cancel things out. And then this last example we will do in class.